feel like I'm gonna ruffle some feathers with this one. There's gonna be controversy in the comments. You're right. I can handle it.
Hi friends. Today I really want to talk about a topic that has had social media and the fashion corner of it in particular in an absolute chokehold across the past several months. And that is seasonal color analysis, also known as personal color analysis, seasonal color typing. Basically, it's that thing where someone looks at your natural coloring in your skin, sometimes also your hair and eyes, and tells you if you are a winter, spring, summer, or fall, which is then supposed to determine which colors look best and worst on you. It's been around for decades. It first popped off in the 80s, but it has seen an explosive resurgence recently online. You, me, and everyone I know has seen an endless stream of content around this topic across the past several months. It's been all over TikTok and YouTube, and I have watched my fair share of it. I am always drawn to try to figure out the person's season, to try to figure out my own season. But the thing is, I don't actually believe in seasonal color analysis. Firstly, I don't think it's real. At least not in the way that it is largely presented to us. And secondly, I don't think we need to wholeheartedly buy into it if it is. Stay with me. Okay, don't click off. Let me explain. Alright, so firstly, I don't think it's real. What do I mean by that? I do want to clarify. I understand that different people look different in different colors. I agree that certain colors are more flattering on certain skin tones, according to our current beauty standards of what is flattering, at least. I even agree that some people do fit into the 4 color typing seasons, and the recommended colors probably do suit them. But the base premise of seasonal color analysis is not different people look different in different colors, or some people fit into these 4 seasons. The base premise of seasonal color analysis, the assumption that it is operating under, is that every single person in the history of humanity, living or dead, falls into one of these 4 color type seasonal categories as they are currently defined. I know there are variations, there are subcategories within those 4, but in every system I've seen within the larger seasonal color analysis realm, the variants and subcategories all still fall within those 4 larger seasons. The other assumption of this system is that everybody in the same seasonal category will look their best in the same colors and their worst in the same colors. I know the subcategories complicate that a little, okay, but that is the origin point, that is the assumption on which this whole idea is founded, and that is still the most mainstream version of this system used today. So we're assuming, broadly, everyone is a fall, winter, spring, or summer, as each of those is popularly defined, and that all members of those seasons look the best and worst in the same colors. That is the base assumption of the system that I do not believe is true. A, from my personal observation, but also B, because I am not willing to operate on any assumption about the world that has not been demonstrated through controlled research studies and statistical evidence. And the thing about seasonal color typing is that it didn't come about through unbiased research or controlled scientific studies. It didn't even come about through a really poorly done study. It came about because somebody made it up, or somebody made up something like it and then somebody else expanded on it, and now we're here. Let me just get specific. From what I can tell from reading scholarly journal Wikipedia's page on seasonal color analysis, the first recorded person to suggest that people's complexions tend to fall into certain color categories was painter Johannes Itten in 1928, who observed his students choosing paint colors that he thought matched their natural complexions. This led Itten to describe 4 different color palettes in his 1961 book, The Art of Color, which he associated with the 4 seasons. His color seasons were based on anecdote and personal observation, which is fine for his own personal theorizing, but it's not empirical evidence that something is a fact of reality. From there, we don't see much discussion on the matter until 1978, when Bernice Kentner published Color Me a Season, which gives a clear, definitive framework that resembles the one we see today. People are classified into one of 4 seasons based on their coloring, which then determines which colors suit them best and which colors suit them the worst. Carol Jackson published Color Me Beautiful in 1980, which has generally the same framework, and Suzanne Cagill published Color The Essence of You in the same year. It is unclear to me where any of these women got their framework from, whether they were inspired by Itten, or each other, or something else, or if they all came up with it independently through their work in fashion design and cosmetology. What is clear to me is that while these books shot seasonal color typing into mainstream popularity, none of them have basis in scientific evidence or formal research. Furthermore, though these color typing systems are all somewhat similar, they also disagree on certain base elements, like whether it just looks at your skin or your hair and eye color are involved. Cagill's system even suggests that one's movement patterns and facial and body characteristics play a role, and that experienced practitioners also often observe predictable personality types and preferences that correspond to a person's seasonal group. So not only do the founders of these ideas not have a scientific basis, but they also have some pretty big disagreements in methods and definitions, which I'm sure carry through to discrepancies in today's practitioners and analysts. Now, I do just want to clarify, I am not here to just shit on these authors. Okay, maybe Susan K. Gill a little bit, just because ascribing personality traits to people based on their phenotype is giving pseudoscientific racism a little bit. But overall, I'm not here to shit on seasonal color analysts. And I know these authors specifically were all professional designers and makeup artists and clearly had a deep vested interest in color and how it works. They drew conclusions from their observations throughout their lifelong careers. It's not coming out of nowhere. I'm not saying they're stupid or they're scamming people. I think color consultants and believers in this system in general find it intuitive, have their own anecdotal evidence in its favor, and believe it to be true. However, I'm just here to point out that when you go through the history of these ideas, it is made clear that it is not based in any quantifiable or measurable data. There are no objective statistics or research to back it up. And from the beginning, it has been extremely subjective and personal. It's all just sort of giving no facts, just vibes. It's also worth noting, I don't know if any of you have noticed anything about these originators, or their book covers, or the pages in their books, but this system was clearly created for white women. Obviously, over time, we've seen the framework expand to become more inclusive, but considering this whole thing is literally about skin color, and its entire basis was just considering the different types of white someone could be, I feel like it goes without saying that the basis is fundamentally untrustworthy in its application towards people of color, especially brown-skinned, dark-skinned people. And it's clear that the basis of whiteness carries through to today because of all the countless videos I've seen of someone getting their colors done, figuring out their season. The overwhelming majority are white women like myself. And the few people of color that I have come across tend to have skin tones that are also pretty naturally occurring in white people. This could of course definitely just be my algorithm showing me people like me, and I would really love to hear from viewers of color and especially Black viewers on this whole thing if you have any thoughts or experience you'd like to share. I also have to shout out Kensani Molotlole's video, Seasonal Color Analysis for Black People and the Gen Z Obsession with Cores and Labels, for going into more depth on this and just having so many smart thoughts about seasonal color analysis and about everything. She's so smart, go check out her channel. This is all to say, the basis for this whole system is flawed at best, non-existent at worst. No basis in empirical research. But Liz, you might be asking, has there been any research done about it since it was created? Maybe the original theory wasn't scientific, but it could have been proved or disproved since then, right? Ugh, you guys are so smart. What a good question. I knew you'd ask that. Overall, the studies have been few and far between. I understand why this is not a most pressing research topic for people, but here's what I have been able to find. One paper seemed to find, through computer analysis of portrait photos, that human coloring does not naturally fall into the 4 seasonal categories as they are defined in the first place. However, I don't know enough about computer analysis of color to say whether it replicates how the human eye understands color. So I don't know if this study can actually be applied to human perception of color, which is of course what seasonal color analysis is all about. This study also used selfies collected through an iPhone app, and in my experience, the iPhone camera actually does a lot of color correcting or color balancing on its own that could definitely change how someone's coloring would appear on camera. So, while this study actually supports my argument, I do think its methods fall short. I did find one other study, The Role of Color in Perception of Attractiveness by Deanna J. Radloff, which found that, on average, subjects found photos of models more attractive when the models were wearing colors recommended for them based on what season they were determined to be by color consultants. This doesn't tell us that all people fall into the 4 seasonal color categories, and it also doesn't even tell us if the stimulus models were picked because they were representative of different seasons, or if they were picked at random and then judged by season afterwards. However, it does give some credence to the idea that different people are more likely to be perceived as more attractive when wearing certain colors. And those colors may be identified via seasonal color typing. I would personally argue that that does not translate into every person falls into one of these 4 categories, and every color they will look good or bad in is the same as everyone else in their category. It's also worth noting to me that in this study, while the majority found stimulus models more attractive in the recommended color, plenty of subjects found the stimulus model more attractive in photos of them wearing what was supposed to be an unflattering color. which speaks to how subjective color preferences can be and how other factors like a slight difference in facial expression might easily override any advantage a certain color might add. Within this paper, Radloff cites a study by Francis and Evans from 1987 in which two stimulus persons were dressed in garments of various colors and styles and were rated by subjects on various personality factors. This study found that the stimulus persons were generally perceived more positively on the sociable factor when not wearing garment colors recommended for their personal coloring than when wearing the recommended colors. So in this study, not only were the recommended colors not better, they were worse. So pretty embarrassing for whoever recommended those colors. This study also found that personal coloring of the stimulus person had the largest effect on assessments of 6 personality trait factors, which I think speaks to the fact that, unfortunately, people are more likely to simply stereotype you based on how you look genetically than on what color you're wearing. Finally, within her paper, Radloff also cites one other study from Francis and Evans done a year later in 1988, and notes that in that study, only one of the 2 reds recommended for the model used in the study was associated with positive assessments of employment potential, which, if only one of 2 looks better, that's really no better than random chance. Can you guys tell I have a psychology degree and wanted to be a researcher at one point? I feel like it's becoming very obvious in this video, so hopefully I'm not the only person who finds this stuff interesting. For any of those of you who are interested in these studies, they will all be linked in the description. Anyway, the point is, overall, it seems like we've got one study with evidence that wearing seasonal color recommendations creates increased perception of positive traits, 2 studies suggesting it doesn't do that, and 1 study suggesting these seasonal color categories are not even naturally occurring in human coloring in the first place. Altogether, I would argue that this does not give seasonal color analysis too much validity. So, to summarize, seasonal color analysis exists because somebody made it up, based on their personal, very limited observations. A couple research studies since have mixed results, which I would argue definitely doesn't prove seasonal color analysis's legitimacy in its current specific form, but doesn't indisputably prove it to be completely baseless either. So, where do we go from here? Ultimately, that depends on how much of a skeptic you are. As you could probably tell by this whole video, I always bend towards skepticism, and I am personally not buying into seasonal color analysis until I see some stronger evidence. For yourself, I encourage you to go with whatever you want. If you really do fit with one of the seasons and it really resonates with you, that's totally cool. If this system has helped you, that's wonderful. I totally understand how some elements are helpful for some people in helping them feel more confident or make smarter purchasing decisions. And if this system can help you do that, that is a good thing. But also, you don't have to accept this system as fact. There is currently no meaningful evidence that you are objectively a fall, winter, spring, or summer, and whatever colors are associated with that are your best colors, and you just have to find out which one you are. There is, as far as I can tell, currently no reason to operate on that assumption about reality. You can free yourself. But regardless of whether it's real or not, there also looms perhaps an even bigger question. Does it even matter? So, I know I just spent all that time explaining why I don't buy seasonal color analysis, but let's say, for the sake of an argument, that it is real, and every person does fall into one of these seasons that indicates their best and worst colors. I still think it doesn't matter. Firstly, by nature of the whole system, detecting someone's season and best colors is notoriously difficult, to the point that it can only really be identified by a trained consultant after going through a rigorous color typing process, which involves specifically comparing swatches of similar colors extremely close to your face. Which to me begs the question, are these colors really that impactful on how you look if most people cannot detect them? Isn't the point to look better to other regular people on a regular day-to-day basis? But if no one around you can detect what colors you look best or worst in, only a trained consultant can, that is inherently contradictory. How can this color possibly make you look objectively better if only one person can identify it under very specific circumstances? I mean, most of the time people aren't even wearing just one solid color, right under their face anyway. Such as me right now, for example. It's just very rare that someone would actually be viewed in the context that is actually replicated by the color swatching method. We also know, in general, for color typing, clients are asked not to wear any makeup so the color analyst can see their natural coloring, which makes sense for figuring out what colors suit you best. But also, if it's so easily thrown off by wearing makeup, then you could easily just wear makeup or adjust what kind of makeup you have on to fit with whatever color you want to wear. The systems also differ in whether they take hair color into account, which also creates discrepancy. And if you do consider hair, then your season might change based on your hair color if you dye it. I do understand the appeal of knowing what colors will make you look your best without having to do anything extra like dye your hair or wear makeup, but even with all that accounted for, it is still largely undetectable to the average person. So it simply can't be making that big of a difference in how good you look. And of course, if it is that obvious and everyone around you can agree that you look better in this color versus that color, you don't really need a season or a color analyst to tell you that. And of course, we also need to address the subjectivity of words like good and bad. Your good or best colors are the ones that make your skin look more uniform, or make your eyes stand out, or bring more color into your face. And your worst colors make you look pale and sickly and gray. Now, those definitions still have a lot of subjective, unquantifiable ideas in them, like looking sickly or making your eyes stand out. But even if we take those definitions to be true and objective, who's to say any of those things are objectively good or bad? Beauty standards and beauty trends notoriously change all the time. Famously, historically, looking pale and sickly was the beauty standard. Obviously, that's not good either. No beauty standard is good. But the point is, there really is no way to look that is objectively good or bad. Our standards and ideas for what looks good or bad are always changing. We see that with the popular body type switching up like every decade. So when I see these color typing videos where everything is boiled down to the color consultant literally just saying things like, this one is great on you, or this one is awful, I find it so frustrating when they don't get more specific on what they mean by that. I would much rather the attitude be more neutral and quantifiable, like, oh, this color makes you look paler. This one brings out the redness in your face a little more. This color makes your under eye bags look less pronounced. And then leave it up to the subject what to do with that information. Even if the information is still biased and still just in the eyes of one specific color consultant, that would still be so much better than the attitude I often see that is just like so overtly negative towards certain colors on certain people. Like, it's colors. It's not that serious. Ultimately, one color is not going to objectively make me or anyone else look like a hideous monster. And to be fair, I have seen some color analysis videos that have much more of this detached observational method. I know Katie from Still the Spotlight got her color analysis done, and I found her analyst to be very refreshing. Katie talked about how her color analyst pointed out specific different effects of different colors, and even noted that which ones you choose depend on what result you're trying to achieve.
And I really like that she explained that sometimes it's not necessarily better or worse, but it could just depend on the situation.
So I know the good versus bad mindset is not everyone's attitude, and I appreciate those who do sort of take that step back. But by and large, the primary attitude does seem to be these color typing professionals saying things like, oh, that one's terrible, horrible on you, which just bums me out. And also is kind of mean.
Ouch, this is painful.
My biggest pet peeve in all of this kind of content is when the experts are like, oh no, you can't wear this one. Like, that is so many steps that you're taking. Firstly, that you're observing this effect that the color has. Secondly, that the effect is objectively negative. And thirdly, that determines what they can or cannot do with their own body. Like, I know it's more of a language thing and they probably don't mean it literally, like they can't mean it literally because they simply can't control what you do with your body. But I just wonder, why would they not just say, this color makes you look a little more gray and washed out, and leave it at that? And like, I know they're hired to be giving assistance with what colors look a certain way on people, but I just, every time I see them be like, you can't wear that one, it blows my mind. I'm like, you can't tell her what to do. You're a seasonal color analyst. You have no authority in this person's life. Maybe I'm being way too dramatic on this point and I just have issues with authority. But that imperative language just really gets me, especially because this whole industry is obviously targeted at and consumed by majority women. So ultimately, it kind of just feels like another way to tell women what's wrong with them, why they look bad, and they need to do something different to look good. and just a way to control women and tell them what they can and cannot do. I also think it's important to remember that this is an industry and it is being marketed. I feel like I've seen so many people come at this with the attitude that it's like this tool of anti-consumerism, and it certainly could be that for certain people. If it served that purpose for you, that's awesome. But I do think overall it's actually much more likely to result in more consumption and more waste. I mean, how many of these videos conclude with the subject saying something like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to get rid of half my wardrobe now, or shopping for new clothes based on their season, when they never had any issues with the old colors in their old clothes before and were completely fine with their old wardrobe last week. Good general rule: if a product, service, or idea creates more waste or incentivizes more consumption, it is probably more capitalist than not, unfortunately. And I know in theory it's supposed to help you minimize waste in the long term because you know what colors to buy, but I'm just like, couldn't you already just figure out what colors you like and buy those and not buy the ones that you don't like? Like, why does it have to be based on this whole flattering color thing if you didn't consider those colors to be flattering or unflattering on you previously, you know? Especially because a lot of people are profiting off of this as an industry. It seems like perhaps it is not actually built as a tool of anti-consumption and minimalism. My final thought on this whole thing, even if it were real, even if it's true that certain colors look objectively worse on you to everyone, which they don't, I find it kind of alarming how uncritically people are willing to buy into something that exists to optimize their attractiveness to other people. I mean, I know a lot of people are like all about optimizing their attractiveness to other people, which bums me out and seems like a sad way to live, but I know that mentality is alive and well, and I understand why. There are real life consequences to how attractive or unattractive other people deem you to be, but that's not a good thing. So while I understand and totally relate to and myself partake in the impulse to try to make myself attractive to other people when choosing how I present myself in the world, for me, it's not like, yay, awesome. Making decisions based on the pressure and need to conform to beauty standards is so cool and fun. So I'm just surprised to see such a positive, uncritical attitude towards seasonal color analysis from not only people with traditional conservative values, but also from people who are otherwise seemingly all about unique personal style, self-expression, and creativity, rebelling against traditional standards in fashion and beauty and life in general, people who generally seem to have very progressive values. Like, since when are we all just totally on board with conforming to beauty standards and dressing to appeal to other people? I kind of thought we were all in agreement that that was not it. And of course, some might argue this is not dressing to appeal to others. This is dressing for what you like and feel good in and makes you feel confident. But you don't need a color consultant or a season to tell you what you like and feel good in. You can figure that out yourself based on your own thoughts and feelings. I do also think this actually speaks to a larger shift in the culture back towards more traditional conservative values in fashion in general, like with the whole old money stealth wealth thing, the current obsession with looking classy and feminine in certain circles online, but that would really be a whole other video. Finally, before I part with you all, I do want to re-emphasize that my issue is not with consumers who buy into this and really get something out of it, or even with the color consultants themselves who fully believe in it. My issue is more with the larger cultural notion that color seasons are an objective fact that applies to all people, and whatever a color analyst says looks good or bad on you is right, and you should follow it, regardless of how you felt about those colors before. I can also recognize that as an artist and fashion creator and just generally very visual person, it is possible that I might have a better natural eye for this sort of thing than the average person. And so while it's easy for me to say, I don't like how I look in this yellow shirt, I can see that it makes me look very gray. Not everyone may be able to observe those things. This was actually made very clear to me when I asked my Instagram followers in a poll what season they thought I was, and the vast majority said autumn, followed by spring, both of which are supposed to have warm undertones. But I know that I have cool undertones because I can see it in myself. I have much more of a pink-purple tinge than a yellow tinge, and I can see it in the way that very warm colors like orange and yellow look on me. That said, I also see why people didn't say summer or winter, because summer seems to be very low contrast and winter seems to be very high contrast, but I am somewhere in the middle. And this is kind of my point with this whole thing. I don't think I fit into the archetypal description of any of the seasons, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. I also don't like wearing a lot of the colors ascribed to the cool undertone seasons, and I do like wearing some warm colors sometimes, even though I'm not huge on orange and yellow. I mean, I have this red orangey hair right now, and I think it looks great, and so do a lot of other people. So, explain that. color analyst. I actually would be very curious if someone could explain to me why I think this color looks good on me, even though I have a very cool skin tone. But the point is, the colors I like to wear do not line up with cool tone seasons at all. Some of them I don't think look good on me, and a lot of them, it doesn't really matter whether they look good on me or not. The colors I love to wear the most and that make me feel the best aren't solely based on how flattering they are. They're also based on what they represent to me, how me they feel, how they fit my mood that day, what vibe I'm feeling. Color is just such a beautiful, useful tool of self-expression, and the idea of limiting your use of color to revolve around what other people will find attractive just seems like such a sad way to look at things. I just think, even for those who do want help with color, there must be a better way than this current system. And instead of continually trying to adapt this flawed kind of bunk system from the 80s, I would argue if people are really invested in having a system in place to help people find colors to wear that will make them feel good, we gotta start over. We gotta start from scratch. We need a whole different system. The system that I would like to propose is that if you want to know what colors will make you feel great and confident, just try putting them on yourself and seeing what you think. Do the little fabric swatching thing that they do in the videos, but just do it on yourself with fabric that you already have. And then, instead of having someone else tell you how good or bad you look and how you should feel about certain colors, just pay attention to what you think looks good and how you feel about the colors. You could also take note of which clothes you already wear the most and notice any color patterns you see, colors that are more frequent, colors that are more absent. To me, whether these colors flatter you is irrelevant, because to me, the only reason to wear flattering colors is to feel good about yourself and how you look. So if you already know what colors make you feel great, what colors you think you look great in, there's no need to go back and have someone else tell you what colors should make you feel good and what colors you should think you look good in based on what season you theoretically are. You've already solved it. Society has evolved past the need for seasonal color analysis. Alright y'all, thank you for watching this long-ass video. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Would love to hear from other seasonal color analysis haters out there. I love being a hater, it's so fun. And yeah, if you leave a comment, watch another video like this one right here, and subscribe to my humble little channel, I heard that you will never have to hear or see anyone talk about seasonal color analysis ever again. Truly the dream.